We are truly blessed here at Temple Israel to have a loyal staff that's here a long time. I'm in my 11th year, and the maintenance and security staff, almost all of them, still out-tenure me. I was recently chatting with some of them, our head of maintenance, Lester Sierra, and one of the guards that's been here a long time. And they recalled a night when there was a wedding here from the caterer, where a wedding guest came in and said, "I'm worried. There's a hooded Hispanic man outside." And the guard says, "And what is he doing?" "Oh, he's working on a light fixture." "Ma'am, there is no need to worry. That's Lester. He works for us, and he's doing his job." I'm glad that Lester was able to laugh this off. I, inside, was kind of seething. This wedding guest, with all the best of intentions perhaps, was clearly prejudiced against Hispanic men, thinking that they are all a threat. I hope the adult part of our brains know that prejudice is bad and that we have to judge individuals by their actions alone. But our more primitive parts of our brain have difficulty with that. The amygdala, the fight or fight part of our brain, does not want to get a threat wrong, and so it is prone to overcompensating. I also think of this simplistic thinking as the third grade brain. Why? There was a documentary from the 1970s that I was shown by my teachers as a kid, and thanks to YouTube, I can show them to my students when I want to make them aware of prejudice. In 1970 or so, a teacher named Jane Elliott in Riceville, Iowa, conducts an experiment amongst her very homogeneous, white, Christian, all blue-collar students in her third grade. On Monday, it's a normal day. Everyone is playing and learning and being together. On Tuesday, she starts the experiment and says, "I have blue eyes. So blue-eyed students are the ones that are superior. The brown eyes have to wear a sash. They're not going to be able to get seconds for lunch." And then she proceeds to say they are slower, they are dumber, and they can't play on the recess field. Of course, during recess, some of the brown-eyed people want to come in. They're third graders, they want to play. And a fight ensues between two boys that are the best of friends on Monday. And now they're having a fight. The next day, Wednesday, she flips it. It's the brown-eyed people on top, with the blue eye wearing the sash and having to be second-class citizens. You would think out of empathy, the brown-eyed kids would be kinder to their blue-eyed people. No, they wanted to lord it over the people that caused them pain. They wanted to exact some sort of revenge. A homogeneous class, just third graders, based on eye color, and in the flip of a second, they turn on each other. It's easy for us adults to become like those third graders, to lash out in prejudice, and yes, even legitimate fears. But we must be prudent and civil until actually someone attempts us harm. We learn in this week's Torah portion that even Abraham knows there is almost always innocent people amongst a group, even if that majority of that group is wicked. We are introduced to Sodom and Gomorrah, the epitome of evil. And Abraham says to God, "If there are even 10 innocent people, please make sure not to destroy the city." God agrees. And God even then still sends angels to show us, the reader perhaps, or to show God that indeed there are no innocent people there in Sodom, as they all mob to sodomize, to physically violently rape the guests of Lot. And it says from young to old, Every single one of them. Sodom is supposed to be the very rare exception where everybody is guilty. I bring up this lesson because our emotions are high and our polarization and fear is great. And those fears are turning on our amygdalas, our fight and fight response, and the rhetoric and prejudice has been ratcheted up. I'm not disparaging or reducing legitimate fears. There are times when we need to be wary of hooded people on a dark street. But we have to find ways to move on with civility, to be able to investigate and make sure that we are not pointing people or painting people with a broad brush. We cannot judge in advance, be prejudiced. I am purposely keeping my message vague without specific examples because I think this lesson should be applied globally, nationally, communally, and in our own families. Whenever possible, we need to be civil in our disagreements and our disputes. And if we can, find the space for coexistence. Because this week's Torah Parsha also has an example of how to coexist even in disputes. Describe that Abraham moves into Philistia, Palestine, and Avimelech is the king. And some of his people take Abraham's wells. And Abraham goes to Avimelech, actually accusing him, and says, "You have taken my wells. What are you going to do about it?" And Avimelech says, "I didn't even know. I am so sorry that my people took your wells. Let's make a pact, a shvuah, that we will respect each other's property." And they exchange 7 ewes, 7 lambs. And what is the name of that place? Be'er Sheva, the well of 7. Instead of warfare, they found peace and coexistence. There was miscommunication, and they found ways to communicate each other. I'm not going to be Pollyanna and say that we are living in a fantasy world. I know there are threats and dangers and violent and wicked people in our world. All I urge is that we use our prefrontal cortex instead of our fight and flight amygdala. One of my teachers says the amygdala is a little almond piece and the frontal cortex comes above in our heads. We have to cover over the amygdala and investigate and make sure that whenever we have a threat, that it is true. Otherwise, take a few deep breaths and seek to listen as well as speak and act.